Back in action. Ready?
I'm ready.
Ready to rock and roll?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Welcome back, guys. Silver Bolt Podcast. James and Colton here talking with you guys today. Got a good one. Got a good one today.
We think, yeah.
Well, we'll find out eventually. I guess to give a little pretext or a little content? I want to at least give you guys an idea of why this came up. In our world of health and fitness, in our realm, people have to find creative ways to make money. This is the case with just about anything. You find a problem, create a cure to the problem, sell it, as demanded. With health and fitness, we always talk about why it gets so muddy, but people are just trying to recreate the wheel to make it more appealing or more sexy or more, give you a reason to buy it. Right? So essentially today, the topic of discussion that James and I were going to dive into was the investment of tools, okay? Particularly throughout the health and fitness realm here, in this health and fitness space. Rather than, using known ways to fix a root problem, we rely on tools. We rely on different means of trying to make a problem feel better, but maybe not fix the problem.
Yeah.
Okay. And I said that, I kind of explained that in a very broad sense. You might already have an idea of something or an aspect that I'm talking about, but this can go down several deep rabbit holes. Mm-hmm. Right. What comes to your mind initially at the beginning?
Well, we are sold convenience, and individuals want that. Like the fear is, can this save me time? And if so, well, then that thing has to be worth it. But really, like, are you fixing anything? Are you identifying the root cause? And at the end, are you making anything better? Are you making a wise investment? Is there any return on the investment? So I know one of your favorite things are like the different mobility tools, or a Theragun, for example.
Yeah. That'd be a perfect example. And I guess from a physical sense, okay, we just want to start there to at least, I guess, make people understand this pretty easily. Okay, so we obviously doing strength and conditioning, general strength and conditioning for the general public. Part of our teaching is tissue management. Okay, we got to manage soft tissue, we got to promote recovery, blood flow, all that fun stuff. Best way to do that is through movement.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, don't be doing what we're doing right now, sitting down all day.
Yeah. Right. Hey, granted, this is the first time I've sat down today, but movement is the best way to promote recovery, right? So you're sore, your PT coach had you do a bunch of squats the day before. You know what makes squats feel better? Doing squats the next day.
More squats.
Yeah, it is what it is. Movement creates blood flow. Blood flow provides nutrients to tissues that need recovery, helps reduce inflammation, all those fun things. But in the most recent years, we've found ways to conveniently, or I guess symptomatically, make it appear that we're going to recover with some of the tools that are out on the market. My favorite one to pick on is a Theragun. Now, Theragun is an actual brand, but it's an oscillating gun, with a dull tip that essentially massages tissue. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what do we get out of a piece of equipment like that? Well, you do create blood flow. Like it is you can. There's no denying that. But blood flow and a little bit of percussion, that's the technical word, percussion instrument. You can actually get to the point where some of the nerve receptors start to dull a little bit if you're doing it for a long time. It's just like anything. You scrape on an area for long enough, it turns dull or turns numb, right? But all of a sudden, if it turns numb, well, guess what? It doesn't hurt anymore. So it gives you that perception that it feels better. Okay.
Right.
There's a lot of false interpretation there, because it's like, well, I'm using the Theragun, I'm using this percussion instrument to help my healing process, but is it actually doing what movement would do for you? No, but it's literally half the time. Like 2 minutes of that thing probably make you feel pretty good, right?
Right.
So at least here's where it kind of starts.
Well, I think with that, I think if just a lot of companies, like if they just were forthright with whatever it is that they're trying to get out there, and if we just communicate to individuals, hey, this thing is going to help you feel better temporarily before you do said thing. But that's not a lie in that context. But if you're just kind of hiding behind that, hey, if you use this tool, it will help your recovery.
Well, go back to what I said a little at the very beginning. Like in the fitness industry, there is a wheel,
right?
And you should not attempt to recreate the wheel, or
right.
You will lose out on areas that are known to be beneficial for you. So as long as you call a tool and treat it as such, you're fine.
Sure.
The percussion instruments, the Theraguns, or whatever the other different brands there are, they have their place, but they are not the end all be all to recovering muscle tissue.
Right.
Okay. And I don't think that you can physically prove that it is. Mm-hmm. Nothing combats moving, creating movement, being on your feet, elevating your heart rate, stuff of that nature.
Well, I think we talked about this once on one of our, I think, very beginning podcast, in that, like, if you're someone who has, like, perfected or, let's say, mastered all of the things, within recovery, taking care of your body, hydration, food, everything, maybe using something like that can be more advantageous for you because you are at that elite tier or whatever. But just for the average individual who, let's say, eats fast food 2 or 3 times a week and gets 4 or 5 hours of sleep per night and is super stressed all the time and sits on a couch a lot, like, that Theragun probably isn't going to do much for you.
No. Well, yeah. So there's, without it sounding too cliche, you gotta master the basics. It's just like anything else. You're not going to build a house until you learn how to cut wood.
Right.
So there's one of the things where you're talking about just picking on mobility tools or percussion instruments. The other thing that really came out as of recently were scraping tools. Mm-hmm. So scraping tools can be extremely beneficial for breaking up myofascial connective tissue, especially think of it like a cobweb over the top of all of your joint structures and your muscle, muscle tissue. And a lot of that can get very, very, very tight, and can restrict range of motion.
Sticky.
Can be, and you can get a lot of knots and stuff in your muscle tissue. You can use that gently scraping away from the nearest joint, and it breaks a lot of that up. But that isn't the best way to achieve mobility, right? So in my world, or in the way that I look at it, flexibility and mobility are 2 different things. Flexibility is your passive range of motion. Okay, right? I sit you down, I say, hey, reach for your feet. Can you touch your feet? That's passive. Active range of motion would be mobility, like what your range of motion does when it's under tension and requires stability and balance and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. 2 different things, okay? You're not going to improve your squat position by raking the crap out of your Achilles tendon and your calves.
Right.
You're going to improve your back squat by sitting a bar on your back and sitting down deep in the hole. Like,
that's what I like to hear.
Well, it's just we try to overcomplicate things. Mm-hmm. Or more importantly, and probably a little bit more accurately, we like to skip or try to skip the things needed for that to happen by investing in these little tools, these little tricks, because maybe that'll save me a little time.
Yeah, it goes back to the time thing.
Or it simply just reaffirms my laziness for some of us, not all, but a good majority of us. Like, there are certain things you should. Essentially, the point of this podcast, there are certain things that we think you should invest your time in, but maybe not your money, especially at the very beginning.
Right. Yeah, just doing the most basic things, and it's just it is boring, but the reward from that, when you've earned that discipline and built that skill, those tools you may not even need them.
No, and that's the thing, and I'll pick on you a little bit because I know you're thick-skinned enough to do it. When the Theragun came out, you were the first person I knew that had one.
I love the Theragun, and I'll be honest, I was gonna put a play in here. I still use the Theragun occasionally. In my defense, when I was using it, I was in a season where I was thinking about competing, doing a super total.
God, yeah, I remember that.
And my body just did not feel wonderful, and I knew that. I was taking care of it to the best of my ability, but that was a way for me to do a workout, and even if I did do my mobility, make myself feel good enough that I could lift what was required on that specific day. And so coming, full circle, coming back, we've realized with our own, like with the business and with the clients in here, I don't want anyone skipping steps, and I need you to work on your mobility and other things. So yeah, we kind of we may still use those things here and there, but we don't have them laying all over the place.
No. And there was, I remember reading a thread somewhere on the old social medias that was in response to one of the doctors or a PT or somebody that I was following making a comment about things like this, tools. Being, it will never replace active recovery and good range of motion training. And, the argument for everybody was that, well, it's time consuming, so it's better than nothing, in which case, yeah, it might be, but therein lies a challenge to what you're prioritizing.
Right.
Where do you prioritize your time, right? Because everybody would rather, sit down and get a massage and get some deep tissue work done, but if you can't spend the time needed to work on yourself, that's obviously one is a lot more enjoyable than the other, right? I personally hate stretching. I need to do it.
I'm right there with you.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things that I don't go now heavily rely on a tool to do the job that I know I should be doing.
Right.
Because I've learned and I've grown and I've understood that it's not the way to do it.
Sure.
Right? So, a lot of people have a little bit of merit there when it's like, well, I work third shift. I can barely get to the gym this time. As soon as I get home, I have my kid, this and that. Like, I get it. Life is hard, but physiology doesn't care.
Sure.
And that's one of those things that sometimes it's a hard thing to tell people. Like, I get it. You work really hard. You're really stressed. You are doing your best, but sometimes that's not enough.
Right.
And you got to be okay with knowing that the Theragun isn't going to give you what you need for what is considered optimal.
Definitely.
As far as recovery is concerned. So, for at least talking about mobility and recovery purposes there, that's an easy one. This is an easy example.
Yeah.
But this can go into a lot of different areas. So where do you want to go next?
Well, I want to tie that up a little bit. Currently, I am not using the Theragun, and honestly, most of my lifts. I really
wasn't picking on you. I just know that you have one.
I wanted to bring this up. Like, on a lot of my lifts now are more than they were in that specific season, and like he's already alluded to, I'm doing the basics. Getting more rest, focusing on the intensity of the workout, and managing all of those things instead of and this, when an individual says that I'm going to compete, you have to be willing as a competitor to go into the workout. There's a good chance today I might be injured, or I might become injured if I'm going to do this specific thing, because it's not about how you feel. No. It's about getting the freaking workout done.
yeah, and that's not the approach that we give to. It's actually quite contrary to how we approach fitness here. But there are different mindsets and different rational considerations for each individual person. That just happens to be yours.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's right.
No.
Right.
It was wrong.
It's just but we all learn from those things, and that's totally fine. Maybe that saves somebody, but on the other end, I've seen more people who are, take, gosh darn it, what's the band?
Fitbit?
No.
The Whoop.
The Whoop band.
Yeah.
Okay. Or any of these other heart rate variation or heart rate variability trainers, these things that essentially monitor your heart rate, and they tell you whether or not you have enough energy to expend today, right? You know what I mean?
I love the HRV stuff, and I think it's phenomenal technology. I had a conversation with an individual actually at our facility, and he, I had one for a bit. I was kind of testing it out, and I said, look, I know when I wake up if I got enough sleep or not, and I know when I go to work out if I'm going to have a good workout or not, because it's all based on what I did or didn't do 2 or 3 days prior. Right. You just have to learn those things.
Yeah, and that's totally fine, and I'm not taking anything away from the people that put a lot of trust into that technology. However, I know a lot more people that have been told that this day shouldn't be trained, and they had the best training day of their life. Right. On the flip side, I've had people say that this should be an excellent day, and it's total garbage.
Right.
So I think there's a lot to say with what happens in between your ears, and you can't just rely solely on technology. You can use it for verification. Like you wake up and you're like, yeah, today was terrible. Kids didn't sleep. The timing of my meals that I had the day before wasn't optimal. And sure enough, I look at my band or whatever it's called, and it's like, yeah, it tells me I'm crap too. So maybe you can put a little weight onto that. But for each individual person, it's a little bit different. You don't want to take away the fact that, just because I'm telling you that you shouldn't use a Theragun or you shouldn't, use something that tells you when you are properly recovered as your only sole means of knowing when to exercise, it shouldn't be the case. Like, you have to obviously build up a little mental fortitude here, a little mental strength and capacity, and take on days as they present challenges. But you got to use tools as what they are meant to be.
Sure.
They are meant to be used as tools.
Yeah. Well, like we just talked about this in our staff meeting. It's almost like we need to, and we probably should, like create like a flow chart. And if you've accomplished this thing, then you could expect this thing. And now you maybe need to work on this thing. And like you said about skipping, there's no need to jump over here if you're not doing the things that are right here.
Yeah. But it comes back down to, well, this thing over here that I'm supposed to be doing is not sexy and I don't like it. Like, the things you probably don't want to do are the things you probably need to do.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to stretch. I know I need to stretch. I know I don't want to back squat. I probably need to back squat. Like, there are things that, I don't want to eat 100% clean all the time. I probably should eat 100% clean all the time. It's just, you got to pick and choose your battles. But just leaning towards something because it's the new trend or because it's sexy, like, is a horrible way to go about it, especially if you are new to this game.
Right.
Okay, start with the basics of literally everything. So since you're not going to hedge into it, I'll hedge into it. It's okay, because there's plenty, like I said, there's plenty of rabbit holes you can go with this topic in mind. And the main topic here is investing in a tool or a system and using it for more than what it actually is, right? Relying on it solely to get you what you want, right? People buy the Theragun not because it is a tool and it'll help me with my recovery, it's because it is my recovery. That's not right. People shouldn't buy an HRV or a HVT or a Whoop band or whatever they're called, and rely specifically and only on it to tell you when to exercise, right? They should use it as a tool.
It's your personal trainer.
Right. So what about nutrition? What about dieting? What about all of the different supplement companies? What about all of the different things that are supposed to, quote unquote, provide you with building blocks? That way you could get lean and shredded and, your sex drive comes back and you're just this mean 20-year-old again.
Right.
What about all those things? Because I can think of quite a few of them that, people, the supplement industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. That's a B with a billion, B.
Yeah.
Okay? That is a lot of zeros.
It's a little annoying.
It is, because we got to combat against it, and we got to tell people literally 900 million of that stuff is terrible.
Sure.
So, give me an example in the supplement industry if you can think of one off the top of your head.
Any kind of fat burner.
Okay.
This product is going to help you increase your metabolic advantage throughout the day, like whatever kind of jargon they want to put behind it.
Raspberry ketones.
Yeah, I mean, look, if there's a couple studies out there that show that, that's cool, and I'm fine if you want to validate it with your own research. But those taking a supplement to aid the body in losing fat, like, let's learn and identify why did we gain fat in the first place.
Right.
Let's start there.
Yeah.
So it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you're already nailing exactly what I had envisioned here. We will, I even working with my online nutrition clients, one of the lectures we did the other day was, people who are trying to identify a diet that they want to follow. I don't like using the word diet anyways, but just for the sake of everybody understanding what I'm saying.
Can we just eat?
Yeah. For people who are, at the beginning of the year, they start Googling, right? And they start looking for what diet should I try? Rather than looking at a diet that solves the problems that they are having within the body, they essentially look for diets that will, quote unquote, allow them to continue doing something that they're doing, but it's still, quote unquote, a diet, right?
Yeah.
I want to continue eating greasy cheeseburgers and cheese and dairy, and it's like, kudos for you, buddy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So rather than looking at what is going to solve the root problem of my existence right now, I'm going to look for what will fulfill the quote unquote diet that, shows that I'm trying to live healthier, even though I'm going to keep smashing Baconators without the bun. And
it is a beautiful picture on any ad, though.
yeah, it is. Rather than, like we were saying, solving the root problem. The root problem, for most people, they should really look at why do I have excess body fat? Why am I always in constant pain? Why does everything hurt? Why can't I sleep? Why can't I tie my own shoes? Like, these are not going to be solved by you searching around for a diet necessarily.
Right.
You got to learn, okay, what are the things that essentially put me in this position?
Yeah.
Right. And I think for most of us, we essentially get, it reminds me kind of like the yodeling guy off of The Price is Right. He goes all the way up to the very top and then he just falls. This is what happens when people get sick and fed up of their life, essentially, as far as health is concerned. They're essentially teetering, tottering up this mountain to the point where you fall off and everything hurts, everything's tired, everything's terrible, and you just can't stand it anymore. And so that's how equally accelerated your search is to find a cure, to find the fix, right? Never mind the fact that you took 15 years to get to where you're at. You're going to solve the problem by next week. And that prompts a lot of people to spend a lot of money, especially on things that suggest or quote unquote promise specific results. Right?
Everyone, they want to get to where it is they want to be as quickly as possible, and that's great. I think that, there is some motivation behind that, and it can help an individual make a choice. But like you already said, one of the first things we mention or bring up with any new individual, or even in our veteran members, to remind them, look, you didn't get to more than likely where you were when you were dissatisfied in 3 weeks, 3 months. We're not going to change it in that amount of time either.
No, probably not. So it begs the question, where should you start? Go back to, just like you said, identify the things that have led you to this position. Some people, that's just being sedentary. Maybe you really don't eat terribly. Maybe it is just the fact that you don't burn calories. Maybe you physically are not active enough. And that's caused your body to essentially retain a lot of the energy it had for that day, and it's stored as adipose tissue or fat, right?
I think every person, I heard you're talking with a member earlier today, and you brought up the extreme ownership, Jocko. Like, if everyone would just literally adopt that kind of mindset with these things, you would be much better off.
And it's a very specific approach to that, but I'd be 100%
just own up to it.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Matter of fact, it's going to be a lot healthier in the long run.
Right.
You're just like, look, I'm here because of this, but it was my choosing, and that's fine.
Sure.
I don't care what your genetics say. I don't care what your predisposition. Look, I have high blood pressure. I don't know if you guys realize that. The person who's lecturing on this, I've had high blood pressure. It's been part of my family for the longest time. We have not had any, knock on wood, any major cardiac events or stroke or anything as a result of it. We just have high blood pressure. But one of the things that I can tell you is that, I'm 30 years old. I feel the healthiest I've ever been, and my blood pressure is still to the point where they're like, you should probably be on medicine. And I'm just like, I don't have anything else that would suggest that I'm unhealthy. Everything else, I'm as healthy as a horse. It's just one of those things that my genetics passed this down to me, but I don't care. I don't live by what my genetics were suggested for me to be.
Boom.
Nobody else has to do that either.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I and it's not like I don't want it to make it sound like I was 18 and I was just so sick and tired of my own crap, and I finally just had this little self-reflection time and I just turned my life around. No, I was thrown into sports. I did all of these things that I love to do, and then it kind of led me into this style of training where I was like, oh yeah, if I wouldn't have done all that, this is probably where I'd be, but I'm not. I am fortunate about it. Now I'm just trying to help other people realize that too.
Right.
So, I'm not, not everything was just, it's just not everything was, just handed to me and I had this, Jocko moment by any means, but he kind of, preaches a lot of things that I firmly believe in.
Sure.
Just a lot harder for other people. And that's fine. You got to have a little difficulty in life, especially when you're talking about your health and fitness, because in my opinion, just makes you a little bit more hungry for it.
Well, if anyone wants to
achieve
some optimal, endeavors with their health, like they want to see some progression, they have to understand it's their responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
And you're not going to get
100%.
anywhere until you take ownership of it.
No, for sure. So, okay, so we talked about nutrition. We talked about having recovery as a tool. We talked about, let me see here.
Hormones are a big one.
Oh, okay. Good on that one.
Take
Holy smokes.
Take this cream, and look, I'm not this comment right here. What you choose to do, that's your thing. You take ownership of it. But I've worked with several female clients over the years, and one of the things that we will find out, as far as like, let's say they're having sporadic periods, or they're going through a stint where like certain hormones are just not having like the kind of production that they should. And a lot of times it might go back to some type of birth control. Again, it's not that is necessarily wrong, but we have to understand like what is the goal of this specific thing, and what might be the long-term consequences, or like putting on like a progesterone cream or other things to make you feel better in this interim, this period. But what are, again, the long-term consequences of that? Why are my hormones out of whack?
Yeah. So
is the question.
Yeah. So go back to the entire premise of this episode, this podcast here. What am I wanting?
We are not doctors.
No, we're not. Yeah, I always used to say that before every episode. But, what are we willing to invest our money in? And does it identify or fix the root cause? Right? Many of us want to invest money into things that we think will fix it in an immediate sense, okay,
Sure.
or very quickly, or at least get us on the path to it, without taking into consideration that long-term ball. Like, what does this look like in 5 years if I am to take this for that long? Do we even know?
Exactly.
Right?
That's the thing. I challenge individuals. I had this conversation with a new member the other day, and I kind of had to draw it on a piece of paper for him. I said, look, if you take this thing, I'm just showing you, and you need to do your own research so you understand it. But if you take this specific thing, it is going to elevate and raise all of the hormones that are at play with the specific thing that he was given. And if you don't work on the balance, which is what you need, you're not getting anywhere.
Right.
And
Make
if
you
you
feel
don't
good.
understand that, there's going to be more consequences down the road.
Well, it's going to be a lot easier just to sell you another dose and be like, hey, you felt good when you're doing this, and then what? You essentially are accumulating one hell of a snowball that's going to come crashing down really hard. So, and that was an isolated incident. It's not the case for everything, but it goes back to the fact that we would rather invest our money into simple fixes. And I'm not saying that, prescriptions are a simple fix. Sometimes prescriptions are very necessary, but I think a lot of us just assume that any prescription is necessary just because somebody says it is. You got to challenge. You need to challenge your healthcare system, essentially. And honestly, there's nothing that gets me more ticked off, for lack of better words, than when somebody challenges the thoughts of their doctor, and not even challenges. Ask questions.
Right.
Whenever I hear about like doctors getting really shitty with people for asking questions, it frustrates the hell out of me. It's like, you're just assuming that we are okay with taking your word without being able to connect the dots.
Yeah.
I hate that for people.
Yeah.
I get checked up once a year, and it doesn't usually go well. It really doesn't. I'm very cordial about it now. But when I have to have somebody sit down who's 75 pounds overweight and tell me that my blood sugar or my blood pressure is a problem, and that my BMI is a little higher than what they'd like to see, I get a little defensive. But it sparks conversation, and I realize that when I ask the questions, they have no clue.
Yeah.
That's
a lack of respect.
I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But anywho, so when you're talking about like hormones specifically, right? Hormonal regulation is essentially the centered portion of all of our body's functionality, right? If our body doesn't function right, there's a good chance that hormones are at play or are somewhat at play. Would you agree with that?
Definitely.
So whenever we have people with hormonal regulation issues or HPA axis dysregulation or whatever the case may be, the first thing is, okay, well, what do I need to take? Half the time, I don't know about you, but it's like, what do you mean take? How about we identify where the stressors in your life are?
Yep.
How about we learn how to better manage stress? Because most of it comes down to stress,
for sure.
Right? This is what somebody would call the natural approach, but guess what? It's not very timely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In which case, it doesn't cost that much money. If it doesn't cost that much money, Why am I investing in it? It's because you're investing time.
Right.
And most people think time is money and I can spend it somewhere else. But the fact is, you probably have a better opportunity to fix what's going on if you really were able to hone in on those specific things. Would you agree?
Definitely. Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. So, hormones, very easy topic to talk about on this sense. And a lot of people don't realize that it's, I guess for this, to get deep into it, we don't, oops, I didn't mean to hit my mic. We don't really just automatically assume that hormones play the biggest problem for a lot of people. But there are plenty of people that are realizing, they're years and years and years into this and trying to figure out what's going on and nothing's changing. It's like, here's usually where we have to go, right? So hormones can be a big factor in that as well, as far as just spending money thinking you're going to get the easy fix and it's going to be all sunshine and roses. It doesn't usually work that way.
Yeah.
How about another one? You got another one on top of your head?
Program hopping.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. Program hopping. What does that refer to?
Well, the individual that, they're in their mind, they have this destination or this place that they want to be, this goal that they want to reach, and they think that this specific type of program that, they find on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, this challenge is going to lend them to that result, and then they opt in for it. It's great. And they're super motivated for the first 8, 10, 14 days.
Maybe.
And then they're looking for the next program and then the next program. And it's not what we're after. Right. And you're never, as an individual, going to get anywhere. You're probably going to become injured if you keep especially if you jump into the wrong intensities on all these programs.
Increasingly frustrated, at least. Yeah, for sure. No, program hopping is kind of an interesting concept because unless you belong to a facility like Reclaim here for a while, like the programming is pretty consistent. It's varied, very much so, and they go through different mesocycles. But as far as program hopping from different modality to different modality, okay, you're gonna be a marathon runner this time. This is gonna give you all the results. I'm gonna be a runner. But no, now I'm gonna go be a power lifter. That's gonna be everything that I want and more. Couple weeks in, that's really hard. No, I'm going to go do Pilates now. This is what we're talking about. You bounce around from you're grasping at straws, essentially, rather than. And
the most annoying part about all of it. Now, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer or a complainer here. Usually, there's an individual, there's an influencer or a model or someone associated with these things, a celebrity, and a lot of times, let's say powerlift, for example, you have this guy or girl, and they're super jacked. They're strong. They're more of a physical specimen. But that didn't happen in a 6-week program. That individual's probably been doing this for long periods of their life where they're very consistent in it.
Right.
Same thing for Pilates. Individuals identify themselves with this is how I want to look. Well, that program, because of 20 years of doing it, that's what happened to that guy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's people take essentially the consistency, and they only see it for face value. They only see what has been the result of consistency, and they don't actually talk about the days where it was, they had the worst day of their life. They were just let go from their job, but they still had the mental fortitude to go get their training in for that day. Nobody wants to highlight those days because it's not a highlight. Matter of fact, it's a low light. But
sucks.
Those days were probably the most important, right? Nobody talked about the day that, if you're going to become a good weightlifter, that you had to go do 4 weeks of 10s in the back squat. That's not a good week. Nobody wants to do that because, we're going to back squat 10s. That was needed as a part of it, right? So program hopping, there are people who will invest a ton of money. And I think one of the most profound examples I can give you is actually a couple different members that we ran into in previous years who they would have memberships at 4 different facilities. 4 or 5 different gyms that they wanted to be a member at. And, it's not knocking the fact that they wanted to be involved with different areas. It was that the commitment.
The support local thing. They took that to heart.
Yeah, right. Well, and some of it wasn't even local. Some of it was, they're buying online memberships. They're buying, different Zoom stuff, whatever. It's just, for whatever scenario they came up with, they wanted to have an answer for it. And, okay, I can see that. But it essentially allowed them to be a jack of all trades, but not a specialist in anything, right? And for a lot of people, you not necessarily specialize, may not be the word I want to use, but like you have to be able to put some serious concentration and focus into a specific training in order to yield any result from it, right?
Right.
So there's people who will invest a ton of money in every program out there, but guess what? If you don't do it, it's not going to work.
Right.
And we Bryce and I always joke, like we could sit down here and collaborate and make the best training program in the world. Like it could be perfect to a T with peaks and secondary peaks and deload weeks and everything. It'd be perfect, and the conditioning would be great from a loading sequence. Like it'd be awesome. If people don't do it, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And I think that was one of my biggest mistakes when I first started programming for our classes. I tried to make it too complicated. And I was getting mad for people that miss it on Wednesdays. I'm like, you're not getting
Yeah. Right.
It's just, it has to be something that people are going to do.
Sure.
And they have to consistently do it.
Yeah. Yeah, we've all grown in that aspect. I remember like there for a while, like I personally, because I thought it was good for the business, I wanted to have all the equipment.
Yeah.
But for your perspective, it makes it more difficult to program because it's like, well, I got all this crap to use. Like I got to use it.
I got all this crap in the way.
And it's like, so we started stripping a lot of that away, and it's like, look, you need to learn you need to pull correctly, you need to squat correctly, you need to press correctly, and let's do some planks and work your core and do some GPP work, and everybody's going to be good to go.
Yeah, and honestly, there's beauty and simplicity in a lot of that stuff. Right. I think that's the number one problem that I noticed, at least, back when I ran a CrossFit gym. It was, a lot of the creativeness that went into the workouts, those weren't necessarily the ones that yielded the best results. Mm-hmm. It was creative. It was cool. It was a new way to think about it. But as far as stimulus and physiology, it wasn't anything new.
Yeah. Different
rep scheme, different loading sequence, but old news. Mm-hmm. The simple stuff, it doesn't look sexy. You want to get strong, go with the bigger, faster, stronger approach. You know what I mean? I got people that'll laugh at me at that, but I'm telling you, linear loading, 3x10.
Sure.
Love it. It's one of those things that it works, and it's cheap. You don't have to invest a lot of money in. It's just, I think the whole, to kind of round out this podcast, okay? If you are so fortunate to be able to invest a lot of money in different areas of health or different avenues of health, that is great. There are many people that aren't fortunate in that manner. However, there needs to be some realistic understanding of what you're investing in. Are you investing in a tool, or better yet, an aspect of health?
Right.
Or are you investing in your overall health? A lot of people would say that they are investing in their overall health, but a Theragun is in your overall health.
No.
10 programs of training protocols is not your overall health. Dietary supplements, nutrition guidelines given to you by an Instagram model is not your whole health.
Right.
What are the things that we touch on?
Hormone therapy.
Hormone therapy, yeah. Investing in your whole health essentially is investing more time than it is money.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's probably the best way to round all this up. It's great that you can invest, money into your health, but the more time you invest in it, the better it's going to be.
Sure.
And ironically, the more money you save.
Yeah, we have to strip down, simplify things, do the basics, get jacked and tan.
Get jacked and tan, and when the sun comes out, have as much of your skin exposed so you can soak up some of that beautiful vitamin D.
There you go.
Anything else you want to add on this one?
No, that was fun. It was a good one.
Fun, yeah. Okay. Short and sweet, to the point. We're going to have Brandon Walpe is going to be on for part 3 for his 3rd time on here, and we are going to talk about a topic that I am thrilled to get into, talking about detoxes. And it's one of those things that this time of the year it gets thrown around a lot. Like, you got to detox your body.
Right.
Fun fact, your body does that on its own.
Yes.
But we're going to talk about that and why some of the things that are out there right now are kind of annoying from our standpoint.
You don't detox with a supplement.
Nope, you do not. So until next time, guys, James and Colton here talking to you. This is the Silver Bullet Podcast.